And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is expected to proceed with the presentation of the 2023 budget statement and the economic policy of government, in spite of the initial demands by some 98 NPP MPs asking for his immediate dismissal. Leadership of the New Patriotic Party yesterday signed a memorandum of understanding between the MPs group and party executives on grounds that the issues relating to his dismissal will be revisited by the president once the budget statement presentation is complete, and also negotiations with the IMF are off the table. At least these are some of the key concerns we're learning from that agreement that has been signed. So let's bring you excerpts of what it is that leadership of the New Patriotic Party agreed on together with the NPP majority. So you have excerpts of that on your screens right now. It's under the title Resolution of Impasse in the NPP Parliamentary Group. And we know that per what has been signed over the past 2 weeks, especially after the President had engaged the majority caucus over calls for the ouster of the Minister of Finance as well as the Minister for State at the Ministry of Finance, and a statement on the engagement had been issued. The country has witnessed some sort of heightened public and media discussion on the same subject matter as this agreement is referring to as the background. They go ahead to talk about the fact that there have been occasional individual interventions by some of which have not helped the resolution of the issue in contention. Now, on the other hand, some of these interventions have contributed to the escalation of tensions and suspicions, I believe, within the New Patriotic Party. So beyond that, the NPP is indicating at this point that the meeting, which was held yesterday, agreed that the president will act upon the initial request of the New Patriotic Party Parliamentary Caucus after the conclusion of these matters. So here's what we know. In the meantime, the leadership of the parliamentary group and the leadership of the party council, the honorable members of the parliamentary party, to resort to the caucus communications channel and to also to the largest extent possible, work together as one caucus unit. Now, leadership and the party in this regard is calling upon the members of parliament to attend to all government businesses. Mind you, of course, some days back, the NPP MP says they were not going to indulge in any government business. But per the agreement now, all the NPP MPs are being asked to attend to all government businesses in the House, including particularly the 2023 budget statement and economic policy and all connected matters. So this goes way beyond the budget presentation by Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. So what's next, and what are some of the key grounds for which the agreement has been signed? There's a need for us to tell you about that, because that's very critical to the conversation. We know that, of course, there are three key grounds on which this decision has been made. One is that obviously the IMF deal will have to be completed by the finance minister and other matters that we're discovering this afternoon. So I want to bring in now my colleague Latif Idris, who was, of course, at that meeting, the NPP headquarters, monitoring all of the engagements when all of that happened. Latif, thanks for joining us. And we need to start off on the grounds for which this agreement is being signed. But let's start off with who signed this agreement and why they should matter in this conversation.
Right, so signed by Honorable Anodom Prairie, is the Majority Chief Whip, okay, and also Justin Kodria Frimpong.
So Justin Kodria Frimpong is the General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party. And these are the demands on the screens right now. Walk us through them, Latif.
Yeah, so just to wrap up on,
right,
on the first preamble.
Right.
So at the meeting this evening, that was yesterday, 22nd of November 2022, involving the Majority Caucus, the leadership of the party and the Council of Elders, it has been agreed by all,
right,
to refocus and recline to the earlier position requested by the president. To wit, one, the demands to stood down until the conclusion of the round of negotiation with the International Monetary Fund.
So that's the first grounds, because we need to be very clear. Initially, the demand was for the immediate dismissal of Ken Ofori-Atta.
Exactly.
Then we saw the 98 go into a special meeting with the president, and afterwards told us that they were no longer interested in this and that, well, let's go on with business as usual. days before the start of the vote of censure hearings, they then reversed their decision.
Exactly.
Then we're now hearing of a new decision this time round to go back to the second position, which is to allow Ken Ofori-Atta to do business. But that will be on just 3 grounds, which we are seeing here on the screens. And the first one is the IMF deal.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you're also learning of some more issues as well.
So we are looking at the second.
That's the second point.
The second.
Yes.
It has to do with the first says allow Ken to go through with the IMF and finish with the negotiations,
right.
and then which will then feed into the 2023 budget.
Right.
2, the presentation of the 2023 budget statement and economic policy on the 24th of November 2022 by the finance minister on behalf of the president.
So it's confirmed that Ken Ofori-Atta will be the one to present the budget, because as part of the demands, they did not agree that he should be the one presenting.
In fact, they clearly stated that they would walk out if Ken is the one presenting the budget.
And then now we also know that even the appropriation bill, they're asking the MPs to support that.
To support that. That is the grounds number 3, which says the subsequent presentation and passage of the appropriation bill. So Ken, as the president indicated earlier, way before we got to where we are today, the president had made a point that allow Ken Ofori-Atta to go through all of these, after which I will take a firm and a conclusive decision on whether he stays in office or he's kicked out, which will be the request by the 98 MPs who are calling for. But as we are now learning, it's like they've once again backtracked. They backtracked, fell in love with the president, backtracked, and now it's like the president has won them back.
What was the mood yesterday when that meeting was taking place? Do we know who was present, and how come perhaps some influence was exerted? We're not too sure of what happened in that meeting.
So at the meeting, it was actually a caucus meeting. That's how the MPP wants us to put it, that it was a caucus meeting, and it wasn't a council of elders meeting the MPP MPs who are
any signs of them? Any signs of these people?
There were. I saw and I approached some of the elders
of the party
to get a sense of how the meeting went for them, but none of them was willing. I mean, obviously, none of them spoke. So we had them in attendance, and we have the MPP MPs in attendance. Some of them were from those who are rebelling against the Ken Ofori-Atta and those who are with him. So you get a sense that, okay, if they say it's a caucus meeting, you want to agree with them to some extent. We have the spokesperson of the 98 MPs who are asking Ken to go. That is Apia-Kubi. He was there. I spoke with him earlier before he got into the meeting. Afterwards, we tried to engage him. He was quiet. He didn't even say a word. He just walked past us, and that was it.
And how about the majority leader? Because this statement we're seeing was not signed by the majority leader. It's instructive to note that.
Because he wasn't at the meeting. This was supposed to be a caucus meeting, but he wasn't at the meeting. I don't know whether it takes something from the meeting, because obviously the majority leader is supposed to be at the caucus meeting.
And that's a leader of government business, don't forget, in Parliament.
And we are making a case for why we need to support government business.
Okay, Latif, let's wrap up with who you've been engaging on this matter.
So I've been engaging the roads minister. He was at the meeting. Obviously, he is in the camp of the finance minister. I've been engaging the MP for Obuasi East. He was also confident about the kind of budget that will be presented come tomorrow, the budget that will give hope and inspire hope in the Ghanaian economy. Those were his words. And some other members of parliament that we engaged. We can take a listen to what I got at the meeting when the meeting came to a conclusive end yesterday.
I don't think I have to discuss anything.
After close to 2 hours of engagement behind closed doors, the MPs and members of the Council of Elders walked out but declined to comment on whatever resolution that was reached at the meeting. Roads Minister Ouster and MP for Obuasi East Patrick Boachi-Yadom were dodgy when asked about the outcome of the meeting.
The meeting went well, and it has always been going well. For MPP, we are together, we are united, and even if there is any issue, look, we have the capacity, to deal with our own issues and our own problems. We are together, the entire party, through the party leadership, the leadership in parliament, up to the president. This party is always together, is one and indivisible.
The government of the New Patriotic Party is going to present a budget that will bring hope to Ghanaians come 2020.
And who is presenting that budget?
Of course, who is the finance minister?
But we understand you are calling for his head.
No, till then, he is still the finance minister.
Deputy Majority Chief Whip and MP for Tolon, Habib Idris, however, told Joy News the meeting was a private caucus meeting.
Trying to say is that it's a private caucus meeting. So you don't just come interrupt into caucus meeting like that, especially like if we are having caucus meeting in parliament or the minority is having their caucus. So we just decided that, today we should come here and have our caucus meeting. So when you come in like this uninvited, and then it's not good, it's not the best. So I beg you, this one we take serious exception to that.
It remains to be seen whether Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will stay and present the 2023 budget, or the NPP MPs prevailed at the make or break meeting.
And of course, we'll be touching base with party leadership shortly on some of these matters. But we understand that there's a lot happening in Parliament with regard to this, because members on the NDC side are questioning the credibility of the NPP MPs who have beaten a retreat on their quest to have the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta sacked. Let's cross over now to Parliament. My colleague Kweku Asante is joining us. And Kweku, who has been addressing this press briefing, and what sense are you getting from the NDC MPs, especially as we know that the budget presentation will be happening in the next 24 hours?
So the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, has been speaking. He says that they feel betrayed by this time.
It appears that we've lost my colleague Kweku Asante there. We'll definitely be reconnecting with him just to get a sense of what's happening in Parliament. But what we do know is that the minority leader, I should be saying, Haruna Idrisu, has been addressing the press on this latest reversal of the decision by the 98 MPs to have the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta dismissed even before the budget presentation. We can hear from the minority leader now.
Should appreciate that when the minority embarked on the constitutional journey of a censure warranted and guaranteed under the 1992 Constitution under Article 82, were not oblivious to the fact that to succeed, we needed support and cooperation from the opposite of the aisle. So get it right. When we initiated the motion, we firmly and sincerely believed that our friends opposite will walk the talk with us and not just make radio and interview declarations, but they will manifest it supporting us on the floor of Parliament and in the exercise of a secret vote as required under Article 82. We cannot but feel let down and betrayed. And for me, it is a step on oversight and parliamentary oversight, and it only weakens Parliament in exercising its oversight in calling ministers to order. That's very disappointing, and that means that the Parliament of Ghana is failing the Ghanaian citizens. And the Parliament of Ghana is failing to protect the public purse. I thought that I should explain this so that you understand that the onerous threshold in Article 82 is 2/3. The people of Ghana gave us 137. That 137 remains unequivocally resolute that we have no faith and confidence in the Finance Minister. Thank you.
So that's the latest from the minority in Parliament. Let's bring in now Kweku Asante. Kweku, what more can you report about the reaction, even from the majority leader? When he's been speaking to some of these developments, mind you, he was not present when that meeting was taking place yesterday.
So the minority have been speaking also. They are saying that government plans to increase some taxes tomorrow. They are alleging in particular that tomorrow VAT, which is currently 17.5%, will go up to 20%. That government intends to increase it by 2.5%. We've heard from Gabi Asayotridakon. We've also heard from Kojo Ponkruma, who have all made it clear that government will be looking to introduce some revenue measures to shore up government's base. And so it is not clear where minorities are getting this information from, but they seem firm that the minority will be increasing the taxes tomorrow when the majority, the finance minister will be increasing taxes tomorrow when the budget is presented tomorrow. So quite an interesting house where board members now prepared to listen to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta as he presents the budget. Previously, we were not sure, even he wasn't sure. But now that hurdle is out of his way, and he said to do so tomorrow.
And in fact, I'll be bringing in Richard Ahiangba, who's the communications director of the New Patriotic Party. He will be explaining some more issues to us. But finally, Kweku, what I want to confirm from you is the issue about the majority leader, because he's key to this. The agreement we're looking at now does not have his signature. From your sources, are you able to tell why this happened?
Well, ordinarily, such statements from the majority stables are not signed by the majority leader himself. The chief whips are normally in charge of these things because they go to the core of discipline. We have not been able to glean whether or not the majority leader, Chairman Sabonsu, supports this decision or not. But indeed, he has always been speaking and saying that he has been trying to calm these 98 NPP MPs from his side who have asked for Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to be dismissed. And so he hasn't yet commented on this officially.
Right.
But sources say that he doesn't have anything against this new decision by the party.
All right then. And at this point, let me bring in Richard Ahiangba, his communications director for the governing New Patriotic Party. Thank you, sir, for your time. It appears that the integrity of your NPP MPs and even the party itself is being questioned, knowing that you are bringing to bear party interest over what some describe as that of national interest. How do you respond to concerns that you should allow your MPs to effectively discharge the duties the people of Ghana have given to them?
Well, thank you very much. Before I answer your question, I think we need to clear some, I don't want to say misreporting, but confusion in your background. On the 25th, when the press conference happened, there was a meeting later in the evening between the president, the party, and the parliamentary group of the party. Now, that meeting concluded, and that conclusion of that meeting came in a release on the 26th of October. And the position there outlined was that they were going to stand down the demand that was made on the 25th press conference and allow for the finance minister to go through the motion of reading the budget, passing the appropriation, and then concluding the IMF deal, and then the request will be acted upon. That is the exact language of the letter, that the request will be acted upon. If I can supply you that letter, and I'm sure you have a copy of it. Now, yesterday's letter was an affirmation of that position, that we had an agreement, that agreement still stands. And this is in reaction to some reports that you have seen suggesting that some number of MPs would not adhere to that original agreement with the party and the government. So essentially, what discussion happened yesterday is not a new understanding that is being reached, is the old understanding that is being affirmed going forward. So I think I want us to understand it that way. So there are not two separate issues that have been agreed to or disagreed to. It's one issue. Yesterday's meeting merely affirmed the position that we should all be committed to that original position.
What's the bearing of this latest memorandum of understanding on the earlier directive asking your NPP MPs not to participate in the vote of censure proceedings?
That's a separate conversation. It's not related to this.
So no connection at all, which means that directive will still stand.
I'm saying that.
Right.
There was a press conference, which conversation is what we're having And the letter you have read, released yesterday, signed jointly by the Chief Whip and the General Secretary of the party, it deals with a separate issue. The release in respect of the participation or non-participation in the vote of censure moved by the NDC is a separate conversation.
The reason why I'm asking this is that earlier, when that statement was issued, your General Secretary was clear that due to the agitations within the party, you were taking another route in dealing with the concerns and calls for the Finance Minister to be dismissed. Per the MOU you have now, if you don't go by the tenets of what it is that was agreed in principle, and that vote comes up on the floor of the House, would you urge your NPP MPs to go ahead and exercise their franchise?
You know, as a party, we have a constitution that regulates our behavior. And in Parliament, you have the whip system exists for a reason. And this is a quintessential parliamentary system and practice. So it works and the way it should work. But I don't anticipate a situation where our party would stand with an opposition party against the party interest when our constitution actually is clear in saying that as a member, you must abide and uphold the position of the party. That letter you are looking at, the one was issued last night, is a crystallized party position having been signed by the General Secretary of the party. So it's incumbent upon me as a party member to adhere to that because that has become a party position. And I expect that all our MPs would honorably abide by it. It's not something that is up for debate, because we all have agreed to be members of the New Patriotic Party, and that's the rule that governs our association and coming together. So I anticipate that our MPs will abide by it. I can see the interest in the media about it, wanting to see something extraordinarily happen, but the issues are very clear. To the extent that you run a media organization, you don't run it in a vacuum. There are rules, there are procedures there. Whether or not people adhere to it, you have to enforce them. And where people go counter to it, you have to punish them. Otherwise, there'll be complete chaos in your institution.
So let's talk about that. So let's talk about some of the rules and regulations then. Some have criticized the party for ignoring the majority leader. Is there any reason for which it's not the one signing to this memorandum of understanding, knowing that his leader of government business?
No, there isn't. So that's why I was careful to illustrate for you that this meeting yesterday and the subsequent issue from that meeting is no different from what the majority leader signed before. You know, the original letter, he signed it, which was a caucus letter, he signed it. And so a meeting to reaffirm what he had already signed cannot be something against his will. He may not have just been in a position to be there at the meeting yesterday, but he was duly represented by the leadership of the party. Appropriately, the majority whip signing that document is the right thing to do.
The feeling is that one person is holding the whole New Patriotic Party to ransom. Richard, why is it becoming too difficult? I mean, you are closer to the president. You've worked there as a research director. Why is it so difficult for the president to simply allow the finance minister to be replaced, if not at least dismissed?
I'm sure you guys, I don't know, your media organization, I don't know if you have gone to the media commission to defend any of your employees. But the point is that it is not about him holding the party ransom. It's about a piece of work in front of the country that he is leading or he was leading before. Yes, the conversation has been advanced that possibly he could be let go, and IMF conversation is not with one person and therefore his removal will not affect anything. That could be true, but the point is that what is Ken Ofori-Atta's functional capacity crime? Is it that he's not capable? Is it that he cannot do the work and he's not done the work? It's not true. You were here when he went to before the the ad hoc committee. You heard his presentation. If you dispute it, you can say it. The NDC people who confronted him with allegations had a full day to actually bring the evidence that suggests that he's been reckless, he's been incompetent, but we're not able to prove that. So you can look at this as a purely internal political issue. And that's exactly what it is. You have to separate the two issues. There is no economic basis. And you know, the last time when the NDC was in office, there was a similar instance that arose about Setekwe to be removed. And those who were alleging or causing for his removal to happen were saying that he was affecting the politics. In other words, his desire to do his work according to a certain laid down principles or enforce or implement or allow for some things to be done in a certain way was affecting the politics. So you separate the two. It is not economic. It's not that Ken is not performing. The challenges we are in today as a country, we must admit it. The president has admitted it. It has a global origin. There are things that we have to do as a country to fix it. Those things are being done. Those decisions and policies that has to be made to fix the problems we are in now will not be solely Ken Ofori-Atta's to divine. It's a cabinet position. It's a whole government solution that has to come. It is not Ken who had to imagine the solution to get us out of here. So the challenges that confront us today, it is not that Ken is not competent. It is a political situation, legitimately so, internal political situation that must be addressed.
It goes beyond the internal. It goes beyond the internal issues, and I must point out what it is that the group of 98 pointed out that they said that it was a problem, a concern from their constituents. These are the words of the group of 98. Yeah, so it's about the people of Ghana asking that the NPP deals with the finance minister.
No, I'm not disputing that. But what I'm telling you is that I just made a case to you that if there is an economic functional performance basis for removing Ken Ofori-Atta, the president would have done it. To say that he is not competent, he lacks capacity, he cannot do the job of finance minister, there is not going to be any equivocation about it. The president would have removed him. But what problem confronts us is political. And so that could well mean that the constituents of MPs are interested in him going. That is a political situation that will be addressed, in time. And that is why it is not out of place to use our rules or our constitution as a political party to regulate behavior, to say that as a party, let's try to do what is it Ghanaians give us mandate to do, which is to serve this country, which is to deliver economic goods to the Ghanaian people. The president was acting in that regard to say, you, me, NPP, we want and promise Ghanaians, give us mandate. They are giving us the mandate. We are in the midst of doing that job. Ken is in the midst of helping us go through an IMF program. It's in the middle of preparing a budget to be read, which collectively allows us to deliver the goods for Ghanaians. Let us see to that. And when we finish, we can discuss the internal political appointment or the political situation that must be addressed. So the issue with Ken is not external, which is why our MPs will not join the NDC to censure him. And you saw that the NDC could not prove anything because there is nothing in terms of competence to be argued that Ken has not performed. Everything that confronts
well, let's not prejudice what it is. I'm sorry, but let's not prejudice what it is that the report of the 8-member ad hoc committee will be. We need to wait for the outcome of that.
I'm just telling you what you have seen.
Yeah, but that's your judgment. That's your judgment of what may have transpired. Beyond that, are you willing to pay the political price? If Ghanaians want to, of course, severely punish the NPP, you know what the implications will be by 2024.
Well, my brother, I just told you an instance where the NDC was pressed. Actually, former President Mahama was the one who said so, that people are pressuring him to remove Setekwe at the time as finance minister.
Is this about the NPP or the NDC? I guess it's a matter of the NPP government.
Sorry?
I guess this is not, you're doing this independent of whatever it is that may have transpired in the erstwhile administration. Ghanaians may not necessarily agree with the former president, a reason for which they voted him out.
I'm just giving you precedent, an occurrence similar to what happened then. But the former president didn't have to remove Setekwe. The thinking was that what Setekwe was confronted with was not because he was incapable or incompetent. It was because there was an internal political situation demanding for his removal. And they were clear in making the case that he is affecting the politics. He is not allowing political decisions to be made in a way that will advance the party's own interest. He is blockading stuff. He's creating political challenges for internal players of the NDC. The same thing could be at work here. But then the president, in his wisdom, bearing responsibility to Ghanaians, said that what is key for us as a government is to serve the Ghanaian people, not to quibble about our own internal politics, which we have time to deal with. So allow us to serve Ghanaians, and then we'll get back to address the internal issue. That is what I'm trying to have you understand. So if I conclude for you, what I want to say to you very clearly, and I hope that settles the issue, is that what we are engaged in with this whole conversation for Ken to go or not to go, the attendant issues of our MPs having this press conference and the negotiations that ensued, it is to address an internal political issue of risk of appointment. And that issue will be addressed. But if you ask me, in the president's wisdom, that cannot be prioritized over the essential task of serving Ghana. And that's what he wants to do, first of all. Let's deal with the business of the country, and we'll get back to the internal political conversation of having Ken continue as finance minister or be gone.
All right, then. Richard, I want you to deal with this for me in just a minute. This is an uncomfortable conversation, but we still need to have that. The feeling that the president, together with his close relations, are holding the NPP to ransom. We've heard from the Council of State, from sources, what they tell us is that they believe that the president should be acting by removing the finance minister. The leadership, and by this I'm referring to the Council of Elders of the NPP, we heard from Mr. Kwame Mpinim, for instance, talk about the fact that there's that call to the president, a collective one, that he should listen to the 98 MPs. And yet the president is not acting. Do you agree that the party is being held to ransom by the president and his close relations?
No, certainly, let's put the issues in context. The president is not refusing to hear or listen to anybody's case. If anything at all, he was the first person who conceded to the demands of the MPs when he met them. Say, I hear you, I appreciate your concerns, but in the meantime, there's a business on hand that must be completed. Now, you can ask me this question post the conditions that were agreed to in the first the first statement that was issued by Parliament, by the Majority Caucus, and affirmed yesterday. If after the passage of the appropriations bill, then Ken is still in office and there is no ongoing conversation to address the matter, then I think you can raise that question. But that question does not arise in the meantime when there is an effective agreement in place that must be adhered to. I'm sure you understand me. So right. The position of the elders that you have cited is justified. They are making a genuine demand. That demand will be looked at, will be acted upon in the words of the agreement that was reached with the MPs. That will be acted upon. But in the meantime, we cannot begin to say that the president will not act in good faith. But what is needed now is to ensure that the understanding that was reached between the MPs, the party, and the government is adhered to, and that the finance minister goes through with the presentation of the budget and the IMF deal conclusion, whichever one comes first, be able to do those things And that the conversation effectively raised by our MPs, supported by the elders in the party that you have cited, will be acted upon. And I think that that's a fair situation that we all have to respect, because when you reach agreement, you abide by it.
Richard Ahyangba, thank you for your time here on The Pulse. That's the Director of Communications for the governing New Patriotic Party.